Most of the week we've been talking about all the rain they're getting out in Southern California, Colton, California, San Bernardino County, and you can see if you look close, that's a water rescue. You don't have to look closely for that, but look closely at the person right there. You can see about to be rescued, and just bad out there. A lot of rain, and you know what's causing this? The same front that's coming this way. Hopefully nothing along the lines of that for us. I get some snow up there in Kansas City. Nice day down here today. A few clouds around. Where do you see the high temperatures? But we are keeping an eye on what's happening in California. That front, you can see, it's coming this way. It'll be here on Sunday. Best weather in America today. Corpus Christi, Texas. 78 right now. Warmest spot in America. 74 currently in Miami, 70 New Orleans. That's why we like living down here along the coastal bend. But here comes that front. It's going to change things here. Not until next week, but when it gets through here on Sunday, it will be the start of increased rain chances for several days into, if not all of next week. Look at the high temperatures today. Record in Corpus Christi, 91, 87 so far. But look at the 90s out west. 96 today in Hebronville, 93 in Freer. Here's a look at North Beach, the Causeway, Portland. Got some fog out there, out toward Rockport and back around toward Port Aransas. 78 right now after the high of 87. Moderate breeze out of the south-southeast. There you go. Moderate fog being reported in Port A right now and light fog in Rockport. Going to have another round of fog tomorrow morning. Look at these temperatures. 67 right now at Ingleside, Rockport, Port Aransas where the fog is. And it's still 90 in Falfurrias and still 91 in Hebronville. Once again, areas of dense fog tomorrow morning. It'll be sunny tomorrow except along the coast. And then a little rain with that front moving through on Sunday morning before it clears out Sunday afternoon. Now, let's take a look at high temperatures. Tell you what, above normal for this weekend, below normal next week. Rain chances next 7 days, you can see. Mainly light rain, looking at a half-inch average total at most. So the timecast for tomorrow, partly cloudy and mild. Not quite as warm, but still not bad, 78 degrees. Highs tomorrow still getting into the 80s and upper 80s south and west. Water temperature 61. No advisories for the bays for the Gulf. Long range forecast. Yeah, after Sunday, it was nice while it lasted. We'll have an update at 6 right now. Keep it here on TV3. 3 News at 5 continues after this.